Here we go. Welcome back to another Ab Nation Live Tonight Show with our coach Hugo, frenchy, directly for the beautiful country of the land of the smile and talent. And we have to go all the way to Ottawa, across to Toronto. We have to go stop by to pick it up in our tap. And finally, we're going to stop because we have to help to moving Marco Larabie. He's in the house tonight. Welcome back, both of you, to join me live for another great night of the Montreal Canadiens news around of course, the NHL. The NHL is over. The season 2022-2023 is over with a big W of the Vegas Golden Knights at last night over the Panthers with a score of 9-3. Ouch. By the way, if you don't know, both of you, 43% rating lower. And this is the lowest Stanley Cup Final watching since 2007. So you can get it right away. That's way at the beginning of the show. Tonight, guys, we're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. We have a lot of things to talk about, first of all. And then we're going to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, the Stanley Cup Final. We're going to review one things about the final very quickly. And then we're going to rock and roll the show tonight. We'll be here for 90 minutes. And then don't forget, at the end of the show, the frenchy quiz are back again for the summer. So going to do that. And Wednesday night, guys, this is a new news for everybody here. It's a night all about the Montreal Canadiens night. So take a note, Marco and NRTAP is going to join me when they can. Every Wednesday night is going to be your show. A little bit like the ad brunch we do the Sunday morning, we're going to be the Wednesday night. So welcome aboard. Thanks to be with us tonight, Mr. Marco and NRTAP. Hopefully an amazing, great week. Marco is busy with the house, and then NRTAP is busy with the final exam of the school, and then ready to move on to the summer. The summer knock the door. So a little bit, tell us a bit more what's going on, Marco, and then following by NRTAP.
Well, Coach, like you said, it's the end of the season, right? So it's kind of a tradition to share with fans, kind of, some of the things going on behind the scenes. So I thought it would be fun to share a little bit of kind of that would explain our performance over the last couple months. So for those of you who didn't know, I think it was in August on one of the Habs brunch episodes, NRTAP slashed Coach in the ribs, and Coach has been doing all these shows with a broken rib the whole time. He's a warrior. Last week, NRTAP, he checked me into the boards, and I broke my sternum, and Coach was good enough to help me put up all my equipment, and I was able to still do the show. But this is hockey, folks. This is how it works. So if you've been critical of how good we've been on the show, now that you understand a little bit kind of what we've been playing through, then I hope you'll understand that we're NRTAP and Coach are true warriors, and so that's kind of where my head at. Like, it's a great time of the year, Coach. Like, this is the new season. As Habs fans, the playoffs were fun and everything, but now this is our season. This is the draft coming up. This is the most important time of the year. So as Habs fans, this is a really exciting time. The future of our team is going to be shaped over the next several weeks. So should be interesting.
Well said, Mr. NRTAP. About 30 seconds.
Well, if you guys were the Warriors, does that mean I won the Stanley Cup then?
You did it.
You're the
From
one
all
slashing, you're the one slashing us, and like, you play pretty dirty, man.
Hey, it's ironic because I guess Kachuk started it all, and you see where we ended off at the end. To me, it was just phenomenal that some of these players went through what they did, and one of the biggest ones. Coach and I were talking about it before, and I mentioned it in the chat. I said, I don't get Eric Ekblad. Like, he hasn't had a great year, and he's had just as bad a playoff. And then when we hear that he had 3 separate injuries, a broken bone in his foot, he had a dislocated shoulder. It makes you understand what they go through. And you're right; those are the true warriors indeed. They still come out and try to give it their all. At the end of the day, it wasn't a greatly rated Stanley Cup Finals, but you got to give credit to both teams. They came out and at least gave up their all and provided some form of entertainment. I know last night's score doesn't indicate that, but I'm referring more to the way they got to the finals. There were some great series along the way.
Yeah, absolutely right about both of you, what you just said. I want to welcome a couple of people are new in the chat. Mr. Rick Woods, welcome in the house. Thanks to be with us. Then we have another one, Grab It's, another subscriber the last couple of days, a week. So I appreciate that, both of you guys, to be with us tonight. I appreciate. And then we have Alan Barnes knock the door again. And we have already won, Mr. Nartap. Question: what do you think about the Eden Hill highest save percentage during the tournament by Terry T back in the house?
Well, I mean, he had not just the series, but a playoff of a lifetime from his point of view. I think he's put himself in a good position to perhaps be the backup in Vegas. Looks like probably Brosson will be the one that goes on the. I don't know if he's a free agent this year. I think he is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
UFA.
Yeah, and if you recall, like we all forget about it, but I mean, the first series and a half, he's the one that really carried Vegas. Yeah, he was having a great playoff, and then Aiden Hill came in and just picked up where he left off, and then went even a little bit further. He didn't have to be extraordinary like Bobrovsky has been on many occasions in this playoff, but he was very good, and you can't take away what he accomplished. And he's punched this ticket, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We're going to move on with that. At the beginning, guys, we're going to get the first 10 minutes about the NHL review of the season. And then, of course, we'll not talk about the Vegas Golden Knights or the champion of the 2023 after 6 years in NHL. Some people like them, some people hate them. Some controversy, trade, or, firing and hiring, and then changing coaches, and then you fire a player like Trade, Fleury, and Pacioretty, Ren Reeves. I can go all the way. McCrimmon go all up and down. Big mistake at the end, but they're all smiling. Foley, the owner's promise, he said in the past, we want to win the Stanley Cup. In the first 6 years, he did it, and congratulations for him, for sure. I will just give us a little bit, 1 minute each one of you, starting with Nartap. What do you think about the final between the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights overall?
Well, in terms of a series, from an entertainment perspective, I didn't think it was the greatest. I think the decline in viewership as well, and being, having gone down 43%, sort of hints at that as well. But having said that, I want to congratulate both teams, especially Vegas, for winning the cup. I think that they, yes, both teams had a degree of luck along the way, and you can't deny that. Like in Florida's case, to win all those games in overtime. In Vegas' case, to get through a couple of very tough opponents to get to the finals as well. That's a testament to them. It's a testament to the fact that we were double guessing and triple guessing who would win the Conn Smythe for Vegas, and the fact that we were on that discussion speaks to how deep this team was. And they kept rolling out 4 different lines, and all of them contributed. Every night there was somebody else that stood out. And at the end, we saw Marchessault finally came away with the Conn Smythe, well-deserved. The only thing I would say, and I'm just going to throw it out there, and it isn't a knock towards Vegas, because I liked Vegas the last 3 or 4 years. I thought last year was sort of a bit of an aberration because of all their injuries. But the one thing I'll say is, if you look at the composition of the team, there's only one player there on that team currently that was drafted and developed, and that was Haig. Everybody else came through. Okay, I know they're an expansion team, and they took a lot of the lower end players, or the ones that felt slighted from other teams. But they built this team based on UFAs, going after trades, spending to the max all the time. To a certain degree, you know, I don't want to put it as an accusation, but sort of circumventing the cap a little bit, as we saw this year yet again. They really came in at 93 million, I believe. And it just makes you think twice in terms of, are we overemphasizing the importance of a draft in the NHL? Yes, it's important, but can you also develop a winning team by going the route that Vegas has? I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying yay or nay to either one, but it's just, I know it's a league, a copycat league, and I wonder how many teams will look at that and say, why wait 5, 6, 10 years before we can develop these players when we can just go out there, look at who's proven, try to go through trade routes or whatever, UFAs, and build your team that way.
Well said, Mr. Marco.
Well, before I respond, I think I agree with most of what Intertap said there. But before I get into all that, I think we have to acknowledge the vast NHL conspiracy, no doubt led by Gary Bettman, to make sure that Florida went really deep in the playoffs and completely ruin our first round draft pick. I think as Habs fans, we all know that in the at the golf tournament or whatever, Gary Bettman was in a smoke-filled room deciding the future, and it's too bad that we ended up losing a better pick. But listen, it is what it is. So in terms of the final itself, Florida is a classic Cinderella team, right? Like, I'll be honest, like if you go back, I encourage you to go back and watch our shows from last summer when Enertap coach and I were picking favorites and everything. Certainly, I didn't pick Florida to even make the playoffs. So great job on them. They're a classic Cinderella story, but the classic Cinderella story that we've seen end in similar ways in the last couple of years, like Montreal, like Dallas. The Cinderella turns into a pumpkin kind of old story that happens in the final. So same kind of thing there. You could see Florida just completely just out of gas, like we, I think it's well documented now. We were just joking about it at the beginning of the show, like all the injuries that they had. There's just nothing left in the tank, but very noble effort by them. So to answer what you threw out there, Intertap, Vegas is a very unique situation. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that people who criticize Vegas for being so aggressive and bold, you just wish your general manager was that bold. Like, did we wish that Marc Bergevin would have been a little bit more aggressive when we had Carey Price to capitalize on the window that we had with Carey Price? Yeah, I think a lot of us were screaming through Twitter saying, "Do something, man! Do something!" Like, you have Carey Price, a generational goalie, but okay, yes, like we don't want you to waste assets from the future, and of course, you should always try to. You don't make trades just to make trades, but like Marc Bergevin didn't believe in the concept of a competitive window, and I think he was wrong. So, hats off. Like, it was a very unconventional approach that they did. Like Intertap said, like they were not playing around. Like it's like on PlayStation. You're making three. Like, you trade for a player and then you trade him. Like 2 months later to another team, and like it's crazy. But it worked. It worked. To me, my biggest takeaway is something we've talked about a little bit here on the show. Because a lot of times people talk about Montreal that we don't have elite talent. There's not any elite talent on the team. And my response to that in the past is, if we don't have an elite, generational player or like an elite player like that, then you have to kind of go and build a balanced team. And, you have good examples of that, teams that are very successful, like the Hurricanes. You have the Islanders that made it really deep in the playoffs several years with that kind of model. And Vegas is a perfect example of a team that just rolls out 4 lines. Yes, you can say Jack Eichel is, like a generational player. I don't think he played like a generational player like in the playoffs. He was very good, not, like Mario Lemieux or even as elevated as Draisaitl or McDavid. Like guys, let's take a minute actually and remember that Marchessault, who won the Conn Smythe Trophy, how many didn't he end up tied for goals with Draisaitl? Like, think about that. Draisaitl, you could almost make an argument that Draisaitl could have won the Conn Smythe even though he got eliminated 2 rounds ago. So, anyways, that's just a quick overview. Congratulations to Vegas. Very unconventional route. Not my favorite team for many reasons, but respect.
Yeah, great point about this. Just want to add something. Like many skeptical people, when they said they would put a Vegas team, not going to work for many reasons, but I turned around to be, I think, a good asset for the NHL to promote the hockey around the USA. But again, congratulations for Golden Knight. They did it. One thing I would say, both of you, is just like I only wish, like you said, Bergevin was a bit more bold about something. But talking about him, you just did it, Mr. Marco. Jonathan Marchessault won the Conn Smythe Trophy, rejected twice, one by the Tampa Bay Lightning, one by the Florida Panthers, and then undrafted. Clark was the winner of the Conn Smythe, the first one, honestly, without the WHA, everything like that. But what do you think about Marchessault performance as small players, first of all, and deliver the merchandise to the Vegas Golden Knights? So let's start again with NRTAP.
Well, again, he reminds me very much, at least his story, very much of Martin St. Louis and the things that he had to undergo. Now, I don't think he's at the level that St. Louis ever reached, but I mean, wherever he's been, he's performed, and you can't take that away from him. He's a grinder. He gets into all the dirty areas. He's not afraid to push back. He's a decent skater, and he's got a great touch around the net. He's got that je ne sais quoi, right? He's got that leadership skill that really brings the fight to the game, and the rest of the players follow from that. I mean, Stone has it as well in terms of a leader, but it's on a different level than Marchessault, I think. This guy, I really think he was the main reason why they got through Edmonton. He had about 2 or 3 outstanding games, especially towards the end, that sealed the deal for them against Edmonton. Because I personally really thought I had Edmonton going to the finals, but you got to give the team credit, Vegas, because they were able to withstand what they threw at them, and the goaltending was much better, and that's why they ended up where they did.
Marco?
I won't add more than that, other than I'll just say this, man. It's all in the eyes. All in the eyes. Like, you're 100% right, Entertap. Like, he's got that, think of it as kind of like a tree, like a generational tree, right? You had Maurice Richard that had the eyes, and then a couple other French Canadian players, like that intense, like even now in Martin St. Louis' press conferences, like remember that time where somebody was asking, like double guessing something that he said, and he just kind of gave him that look. Like Marchessault has that kind of look, right? Like he's an intense guy, and you got to love a guy like that. So really happy for him. I'm overall, you're just really happy for what they call the misfits, like the original misfits that were on that team. It's a great story for them, and he's a big part of that. Maybe somewhere James Neal is kind of wondering what it would be like to be on that team. He was probably the biggest star that Vegas had in the first little part of their run there. But I just also wonder some of the, like, how does Pacioretty feel today? How does Paul Stastny feel today? They went there thinking that they were going to be part of something like this, and sometimes you just have people that are casualties of the process, right? And I think if I was those guys, I'd be a little bitter.
Yeah, but it's a very fine line in terms of when you're managing a team, right? Like in terms of the business aspect, which I think Vegas takes to the nth degree, and then some general managers that not only do they try to pursue the business aspect and make sure it runs well, but they also have that loyalty towards some players sometimes. And I think that's where Bergeron made a mistake in terms of some of the contracts he gave out at the end before he left. In Vegas's case, they did not have any real loyalty to any one player in particular, as we saw with
No,
Fleury when they just kicked him out the back door. And
it
later
works.
on,
It works.
even with their coach, think of their coaches.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
were a couple coaches there, starting with Gallant, that were puzzled why they were fired to this
And
day.
that's probably
So
the only. That's one of the rare things that Bergevin got right. Like, remember his line, like, "If you want loyalty, get a dog." You know? So he had the idea, but he didn't really kind of walk the walk when it came to that idea, right? Like, I got
yeah,
like what it reminds me of is kind of St. Louis, right? Like they're not afraid to part with players like Pietrangelo and guys like that, right? Like they're just, and even Tampa, they had to part ways with Ryan McDonough. Like those, sometimes it's tough, man, but it's a business, and these, you have to kind of manage. It's asset management, right? At the end of the day, and Coach, I hope you have this in the show later. I don't know if we're going to be talking about the changes in the Habs medical staff, but
Yep. All the news coming right after that.
all right, all right. Let's. I think I'm done with Marcia. So he's a lovely boy, and I'm very happy for him.
Here we go. Well said about this one. I just want to say to you, I was looking about, I coach hockey and I'm really more about motivation, everything like that. So I decided I will look about something I can talk about Jonathan Marchessault tonight. And I remember one of the things I would say to my players all the time. You might not always be the most gift athlete on your team, but you can always find way to improve yourself and your team. Great team have great teammates. No matter what your talent level is, you can become your team most gifted teammate. I think that's the reason why sometimes the team winning is about the teaming the team all together. This is a message paid by Pierre Dubois, but I will tell you a bit more about that about this one.
we're gonna go
It's
there,
not,
are we?
Coach. By the way, it's not fair when you have like pre-prepared answers to your own questions. Like, way to make me and Entertap preparable. Like, you have these pre-written answers to your own questions. Like,
Yeah.
all right, talk about being a good teammate.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question for you before we move on for Montreal Canadian and everything for the chat too at the same time. So here's my question to you guys. Now the NHL season is over. I apologize for the mistake right there. What's one assumption you had about the game that was proven wrong this year? Anything you can think
Ooh.
about something you're thinking and then did not happening, or something you're shocking about that for the season 2022-2023. I would like to hear that for the chat too, if you want to join the conversation. So let's start it with Marco on that one.
That's a really good question, Coach. You pre-prepared this one for sure, and it's a good one. I'm anxious to see what answer you thought about before we had a chance to look at it. That's a really good one. Like, I think the most obvious one is Vegas's goaltending, right? Like, the notion that you really need to have top echelon goaltending, elite goaltending to win a Stanley Cup. It's 2 years in a row. Like, like Darcy Kempfer is not an elite goalie. He was an established goalie that won with Colorado. But Aiden Hill, like, it's a great story, but he was picked up, I believe, on waivers or for like a 5th round draft pick from San Jose, right? So that's definitely a preconceived notion or stereotype that this playoff and this year has proven us wrong. So that would be the most obvious one. And probably other than that, like, I don't know, I'll let Entertap take a less easy one. I took the one that's the easiest, and I'll let Entertap agonize over what another one would be.
Yeah, it definitely is a good question. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, the myth that NHL scoring is down in the league, right? This year we saw some whoppers of games, and I'm not talking about like 5-4. I'm talking about 7-2 and 9-3, and like teams that also came back from multiple goal deficits all year long. And I don't know what that's really a testament to. Is it the quality of forwards, the speed of the game, maybe the level of goaltending is not what we maybe envisioned, but regardless, we did see I haven't looked at the stats to see where it ranks with other years in terms of offense, but we definitely generated a lot more offense, which is something that many people had complained about the sport over the last few years, that it was boring and who wants to watch a 2-1 game. And I mean, from an entertainment perspective, a person that understands the game, it doesn't matter what the score is. Like, you'll appreciate it for what it is and what talent is displayed. But from a more casual sports fan, they want to see the goals, and this year it didn't fail them. So that's one assumption that I think went 180 and proved that yes, the offense can be there. Um, the other one, I would just circle back to what I was saying earlier about Vegas. Again, I just question what is the proper way to build a team. I don't know if it's primarily just going through the draft. I think that besides the luck element, you also have to have a good blend of picking up, UFAs, RFAs, whatever the case might be, making good trades, and as you said earlier, Marco, just having, the gumption
Decent
to
goal.
go out there and yeah,
Yeah.
to make these things happen. Right? Not many GMs. Many of them are very comfortable with where they are. They bring in good gate receipts. The city doesn't, or the media there in some cities don't bother them very much, and the expectations aren't as high as some of the more highlighted centers, like Toronto, Montreal, New York. The three that come to quickest to mind. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I just don't know if the Vegas model is the way to go, or if it's still through the draft. I think it's kind of a blend of everything, but I'm not a GM.
Yeah.
Well said, both of you. Thanks so much for answering me this question. We have a few people knock the door. We have a King of Gamer knock the door. Welcome back, Jake McHenry,
Wow.
and William McClary is in the house. And welcome again the new people like Gravid Hits, and then Rick Woods. Welcome everybody and the family. And Alan Barnes knocked the door tonight. Is leaving, but we want to say hi to you. Great conversation between Luciano and Rick Woods, and many things about the reading and TV. So thanks, Luciano, to provide all the news. Everything like that. That's you guys. You do this great job. King, a question for the Arizona Coyotes guys. I will give you this for Marco. What are your expectations for Arizona during the off season and heading into the new year on off of the ice? What do you expect for the Arizona Coyotes? They draft pick number 6 and pick number 12.
A lot of uncertainty kind of going into the next season here, right? Like I think the ownership, the players, even the media was really caught off guard when the vote didn't go the way that they thought it was going to go for the new arena. I think a lot of players have a lot of difficulty kind of imagining what it looks like on the other side, right? Like, it's one thing to kind of commit to playing in a what you would call maybe a subpar, environment for a little while, if you're confident that there is a established plan for the future, right? But now that there's not, I think, I don't always believe that players really look at ownership that much. Like, they more look at kind of how the team is managed, who's coaching it, who they're going to play with, if they have a chance to win, and things like that. But when you look at situations like, remember the Islanders, like, they had no idea where they were going to play for a while. Like, players had to, like, kind of stay in hotels, and like that becomes really impactful to your day-to-day life. And so I think it's going to be a challenging, it's already a very crucial part in their, in their development, right? Like, it seems like they've done many rebuilds and just have never really been able to kind of get off the ground here. So it's going to be a challenging summer. Like, it makes you think about players like Keller, like, what are they going to do with Clayton Keller? Like, they have some good prospects. They have a high pick this year, obviously. A lot of uncertainty, and, it's unclear. It's just one of those teams that it's so hard to pin down as to kind of what direction they're going into. And it's it's kind of like trying to hold like a handful of sand. It's just not very easy to kind of get a grip on. So lots of questions. King of Gamers, like it's going to be a very interesting summer for them, and will be interesting to watch.
Well said, Mr. Marco. Let's move on. The Montreal Canadiens. Here we go. Mr. Comments about what we get there. A winning spin in 2023, more in 2024, 2025, 18 players under contract. Final year for 2024, 2025 is Savard, Armia, and Devorak. So it's a little bit like a statement, but at the same time, we bring tonight, guys. By the way, I forgot to mention everybody. I don't know if I have this, the subject of tonight, guys. What is next in 2023? So I apologize, guys. I did not go straight there at the beginning of the show. But what is next for the Montreal Canadiens 2023? So I'm just sharing with you what's going on. So my question, both of you and the people in the chat, do you expect Montreal Canadiens are going to spend money or try to get UFA or try to improve the team by signing, example, I don't know, like Bertuzzi or Tarasenko? I'll just give you nine. Not that they have to target them, but what do you think they're really waiting until 2024, 2025 and really now open more their money for the salary cap? Let's go with Inartap on that one.
Well, I don't think that's in their plans, Coach, to quickly go out there and look at the UFAs that are available and try to lock up somebody. I mean, having said that, all we hear in the media in the last, I'd say 6 months is about Pierre-Luc Dubois coming over. And now all of a sudden, he makes a demand that he wants to come over for $9 million. If that's the case, I don't see Montreal participating in those conversations. It just goes against everything that they've tried to build so far. I think it was necessary for them to fill their cupboards up, and they're continuing to do that in terms of their draft picks and selection, making sure that the foundations of the team are in place. And sort of tying this together with the last question about Arizona, that's what I feel about Arizona. They have all these picks. They have so many prospects. It's like they bought the furniture for their home before they got an inspection for the building, which is crumbling around them. Like the first thing they should have had in place was, where's this? Like if it's not going to work in Arizona, let's move it somewhere else, because you have to settle that first before you start putting in your furniture and making it. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, right? You can't masquerade the problem. I just think even in Montreal's case, they can't diverge from what their game plan is. And from day one, they said that they were going to try to build. They weren't going to take multiple years to do it. So having said that, after this year, I can see them being a little bit more aggressive with the RFAs. With the UFAs. But they've proven also that, at draft time, and we'll probably see it again this year, that they're going to make a Doc kind of move to either improve their standings in terms of a player that they get that somebody else has not given up, but has lost faith in, and maybe coming over that can improve their future a little bit and benefit the team. But they're filling in the gaps nicely. Like I think the defense is pretty much not in place yet. There's still a little bit of tweaking to do there, but they have a good core foundation there. They have a couple of key players signed up for the long haul, and Suzuki, Doc, Caulfield. Of course they got Slavkovsky last year. So they're moving in the right direction. It's just going to take maybe one more year before they become a little bit more aggressive.
Great comments, Inartap. I will go, Marco, with the question. Did you see the question from Black?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you flash it back
up? Together, that'd be great.
Yeah. Can you flash that up, actually, the question again? Do you still have it?
It's just about referring to the Dak Kamenev. Do you think they will have someone like that?
Yeah, somebody that we could target. Yeah, so, man, I hate to always agree with Enertex. It makes the show less exciting, but, it's hard to if you take Hugo Hughes at his word, then the words out of his mouth is we're not going to do anything for the short term, right? So to me, it doesn't make any sense to go out and sign a UFA. The only move that really makes sense is for them to kind of we've talked about this on Habs Brunch on Sunday, like liquidating. We have a lot of assets, so if you can combine assets and get a more elite asset, I think that's something that they'll look at. To answer the question in the chat, are there kind of targets out there similar to kind of a Doc? I guess I might be kind of controversial is Carter Hart. That's kind of the same type of situation where you have a team that is kind of has these kind of not really veteran players, but players that are just about to come to age, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked where they are, and that they're looking to part with that player. So similarly to Chicago last year, Philly might be a team that is kind of this year's Chicago. So looking at their roster, you have Carter Hart. There's players like Konechny, but Konechny is a little bit older, doesn't really fit the profile of a Doc. So like I think in Anatav said, like a player in that profile, somebody maybe like 21, 22 years old. Carter Hart's a bit older, but in terms of goalie years, like dog years, he's like 19 or 20, right? Like he's 20, 24 or something like that. So I would say Carter Hart is that. Go ahead.
Do you think somebody like Kako might be an option?
I don't think he's necessarily the kind of player that would complement what we already have. It depends kind of what the cost would be. Not really somebody that I think plays with much jam. So not really somebody that I would kind of go after, to be honest. Depending kind of what happens and what type of player we get in the draft. One thing though, Coach, just looking at your slide here, looking at Dvorak in particular, just think about this for a second. It hurts my brain to think that he's going to be UFA next year, right?
2025.
2025.
Oh,
Yeah. So the 24-25, they are the three player, the final year contract, Sava, Armia, and Dvorak.
Okay. It still hurts to think that from an asset management perspective, though, that we had a third overall pick and it turned into Dvorak. And what else? Like what else? So because basically we traded Kotkaniemi for a first round pick.
A first and a third, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So we didn't trade, but we got like the first and that, right? So so ultimately we then we went and traded that pick for Dvorak, right? So from an asset management perspective, they have to do something with that Dvorak contract. Like I know it's not necessarily Hugo's fault. This deal didn't happen on their clock, but if you ever watch Steve Dangle, he does those trade trees where you can kind of look at how a trade started and then see kind of how things develop. This would be one of the worst trade trees ever, where a team converts a third overall draft pick for whatever it is that we end up getting for Dvorak. So hopefully he can rebound, and there's some talk that some Western Conference teams still hold him in a high regard. So let's hope that's true, guys, because we need to convert him into something worthwhile. Because as a Habs fan, that hurts to see that, like, especially knowing that we could have either drafted Tkachuk or Hughes or a number of other players instead of Kotkaniemi, or just kept Kotkaniemi. Like Kotkaniemi, I know he's not the most popular guy. I still think he's going to be a good player. He had a really good playoff for Carolina. He actually is playing tougher and he had a good kind of second half of the season. So it hurts. It hurts looking like just seeing the word Dvorak. It just it creeps me out. It doesn't feel good understanding where this is going to go. What do you think Dvorak's value is on the market now, Coach?
Second round pick.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh, yikes.
He's he's a very steady. Like if you have a deep team, you want him as your third centerman. Like he's the perfect fit at that position. He's very responsible defensively, and if you look at his stats, they haven't been horrible. He's been actually very consistent from the time he was in Arizona to the time he's
Yeah.
come here as well. If you take also the injury component into consideration here, but you're right. That's all you're going to get from him. Unfortunately, with KK, I mean, you couldn't match. You couldn't match that offer sheet that was made. It would have been ridiculous to match that. We would have been
But look,
in
where he ended
such
up with that.
quicksand.
Like he's on an 8-year deal now for what, like 4.55 million? You
4
don't
point,
think
yeah.
you wouldn't take Kotkaniemi at 8 years for 4.5? That's like a very similar deal to what Doc has, but Doc is only for 3 years or 4 years, right? I would take
Yeah.
Kotkaniemi at 4.5 for 8 years. Holy shit, that would be an amazing deal.
I just
It's a
want to
bit high,
mention
bit high.
I'm sorry, not that. I just want to mention, Marco, the reason I said second round pick because I consider like Dvorak like a solid, good third center for anything go to playoff. The guy, he won the face off. He gonna shorten the special team. He all that. He contributes fun ways on the details. And if you talk about the trade between Colorado and the Washington for Lars Eller, I consider that kind of prototype plus similar. Not said exactly, but I think, and they got a second round pick in return. That's what my second round pick is coming from. Now, if you get 34, 35 pick, 37 in the overall pick, I don't think so. But if you think about like, 45 or maybe 50, 54, I think the value of the Dvorak is ready for the second round pick.
So, Coach, I'm seeing
Yeah.
in the chat people are wondering why we're talking about Kotkaniemi. Listen, the reason I'm bringing him up is that it's an asset management question, right? Like, it's just not good asset management to convert a third overall pick into a second round pick. These are mistakes that will set your franchise back years, right? So I know
But you're
that
not
it
going to get
wasn't.
more at second round pick.
I get it, but people are just they're asking, why do I keep bringing out Kotkaniemi? It's old news or whatever. But I'm just pointing out that in the process of building out their team, this is a huge setback. Like if you're not able to get anything more than a second round pick, that's a major step back.
But
They're
yeah,
going to
to
need
think I will
to.
insert back to you. First of all, they make a big mistake to skip Brandy Kachuk over Kokanemi on the first
Oh yeah,
on the
of course.
NHL draft. The first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing, I
Absolutely.
think Bergevin, he was a bit no preparation. It reminded me a lot of Michel Therrien. That's what the both of them fixed. They was doing well. Therrien was not prepared at all. I know him very well. He was not like compared to Mike Babcock. Therrien was no close to be like him, like a preparation. So Bergevin did not see the option B or option C when they lose Kokanemi. He was on the panic mode. A little bit like Toronto did 2 years back to back with Kyle Dubas. When they have a year to sign a goaltender, and they
Yeah.
wait and they wait and they wait and they wait, and then whoop, we have to sign someone. Let's go make Matt Murray example. So when he did, I think it was just the panic mode, and that's you're right when you said they back up the Montreal Canadiens backwards for decision power for Marc Bergevin. But right now, I think Montreal Canadiens could keep Dvorak until the trade deadline this year, and it could become an asset you can trade for him at some point, or wait next season at his final contract with the Montreal Canadiens. Until you develop Owen Becker or any other center join the Montreal Canadiens. So I know we stuck a little bit longer what we expect on that one, but I just want to sharing with you guys about that. The only time I do the transition, guys, if you don't mind, Artap, I apologize. I skipped your answer that one. We'll give it to you, Mr. Artap, that one. Outside of Mayu, who do your next best right handle D prospect?
Currently, I mean, Barron obviously is in the mix there. That's part of the problem is we don't have very many right-handed defensemen.
I think
Barron's
that's it. Yeah, that's you got it. That's all that's there, pretty much.
Yeah.
A lot of great news around here, a lot of great comments in the chat. Thanks so much, everybody. So the next thing for you guys is about this one. The app news medical staff fire. Two veterans employee long time, really well know and the medical staff around the league, but also really appreciated by its fun players like Greg Rivet, Nick Suzuki talk about them, and many others about the. For obviously, if get fired, they're going to get hired somewhere for sure. But just give us a bit your thought about this in our tab. You can start with that.
It's not a surprise. I think Gordon kind of alluded to it at the year-end press media that he and Hughes both had, that they were going to look into the situation a little bit more in depth. But the fact that 2 consecutive years, and I would even venture to say over the course of the last 10 years, if you add up all the missed games that they've had, it's remarkable. Now, we've had this argument many times, and you can say, you know what, it's a combination of bad luck, and this guy, Anderson just slammed into the post and has a high ankle injury. I mean, those aren't things that your medical staff necessarily can avoid, right? They're part of the game. They happen for some players and some teams. It happens more so often than others. However, having said that, I think that where the investigation had to come into play was in 2 areas. Number one, making sure that the player is properly healed before they come back to play. And we saw it with Monahan. We saw it with Gallagher. We saw it with, at one point, even Gouli that came back early. Like, I didn't quite understand why they had to bring Gouli back with about 15 games to go or whatever it was. I mean, he had nothing else to prove.
And then he got injured again.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think that's where the investigation came into play. They looked at it and they said, you know what, we got to go in a different direction. These weren't directors that they had put into athletic directors that they had put into place themselves. So it's a new management as well. My only question is their head doctor. I mean, yes, he's a fantastic trauma doctor, but I mean, I believe he's around 80 years of age now. So at some point,
Dr.
maybe even older. Yeah.
Dr. Mulder, like, wasn't he in the X-Files? Wasn't he in the X-Files, Dr. Mulder?
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. But, even there, I mean, you have to keep up with the time. I think technology has really kicked in, but there's ways in which to quicken the process of healing that deals with that technology as well. And I'm not surprised that it happened. You always hate to see anybody get fired over it, but by the same token, they have to. I couldn't see them rolling back these same people next year when over 2 consecutive years they've set an NHL record in man games missed.
Marco,
Coach, this one, this one, it makes me mad, to be honest. I think these guys are being scapegoated, to be honest. We talked about this during the season. Like, yes, are there more modern medical techniques and strategies that these guys could use to understand, the overall kind of impact on players' bodies and how to better heal quicker and like total body healing and all that stuff? Yes. So, but really, what does this change? Like, really, this is a management issue. This is a cultural issue, right? Like, Intertap, you nailed it, right? Monahan, Gallagher, Gouli, just this past season, were allowed to come back even though they were clearly injured. Now, we talked about asset management earlier, and we talked about Vegas on how they're able to make business decisions that will best serve their team and to win. Well, seems like this is not just Hugo, right? But let's go back a little bit, guys. Like Carey Price, Shea Weber. Remember those guys? Remember Shea Weber?
Don't forget Caulfield as well.
Caulfield was the rare example where they actually sat the player down and tried to reason with him, and he ended up actually not playing. So I view him as kind of the odd duck out of all the other ones, right? But so to me, if I'm Jeff Molson, I'm really concerned. You're just changing the doctors, but you need to have a new process, a new policy where it's not okay. Like, yes, I was joking at the beginning of the show how hockey players are warriors and all that. We love that. And if they're able to play through an injury for a little while when games matter during the playoffs or to get in the playoffs, that's a different thing, because there's totally different things at stake when you're a team that's competitive. And also, it's okay for them to play hurt, but playing injured is not really going to help. Like, Tkachuk had a broken sternum. Like, so I think it's a scapegoat, coach. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I hope that it's not just about changing the medical staff. They really need to look at the overall process. They need to make the players more accountable, and they have to make the decision for the team. No more it's not being mean to the players, but it just not treating players like they're running the show. Players that shouldn't be running the show and making these decisions. Management should be making these decisions.
Well said. We have a few people in the house at back. We have Mr. Zev Lakav is with us. We have DV, first time tonight. Welcome in the Hockey National Show. Randy Walkman is back with us. Renault, Mr. Renault is back with the Hockey National Show.
All
and
right,
IG
Renault
is with us tonight. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget, guys, to click on the like. If you don't mind, that'd be great. Don't forget, every Wednesday night, it's about all the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to talk about your Montreal Canadiens. Any question you want to talk about this, stay in the subject. If you don't mind, that'd be great. If you're not, if your questions about other things where we don't talk, it's really difficult. So for the next 30 minutes, it's going to be about the Montreal Canadiens. So if you have any question, please let us know. We have more time, Gaming King. We're going to answer to your question about the St. Louis Blues. Next question, guys, is about the Montreal Canadiens. But you have a couple of news about the RHP, Hoffman, and Belzile. But first of all, RHP and Belzile news is RHP is going to a little bit expecting a little bit more money. Montreal Canadiens going to try to get him a long term, and then Belzile look like he's going to hit the UFA. And then finally, look like the Montreal Canadiens are not going to buy out Mike Hoffman. For what we heard, look like Hoffman is going to start with the season with the Montreal Canadiens for what we heard the last 24 hours. So start with Marco about this. You can one or two players on the subject here, and we'll move on after that, and after pick it up what Marco did not talk about.
Well, I'll leave RHP for Entertap. Like I'll say if they can lock him in at a long-term deal, like around.
Leave me Hoffman.
No, I gotta. Listen. If you're gonna talk about trading your franchise player, then I want to talk about that, right? So you're dealing with Hoffman. He's arguably a franchise. No, he's not a franchise. Okay, let's stop. I'll be very, very upset, as everybody knows, if Mike Hoffman plays the entire year with Montreal. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm not sure. It's going to be very painful to watch. I hope it's just Coach. I'm sure you're right, but I hope to God you're wrong. As for Belzile, I find that's a shame. I think he absolutely earned a one-way contract in the NHL. I think, at the very least, even if you do have to send him back down to Laval, that's fine. It's a great way to make sure that you hold on to him, because teams might not just pull the trigger picking somebody up that has a one-way contract. He might be not as attractive for a team to pick him up on waivers. I think you need a guy like that. Coach, I think a couple weeks ago we were talking about how this is the first year that we're actually going to have real prospects in Laval, not just kind of recycled AHL veterans that are half the team, right? We're actually going to have real prospects. It'll actually be fun to watch actual prospects that might one day play in the NHL that we drafted in Laval. So to me, there's no better guy that you want over there. He cares about the team. He knows what it's all about being a Montreal Canadian. He brings that NHL experience. I think it would be a huge mistake don't be surprised. Like this guy has Julien Brisebois written all over him. If he doesn't sign with Montreal, he'll be playing with the Syracuse Crunch next year. Quote me on that.
And after that,
Okay, let's start with RHP. I think that pretty much was a no-brainer. We saw his work ethic, and we know his story in terms of where he came from. He seems to thrive with that type of pressure on him, and I mean he's going to be good for that third, possibly fourth line, depending on how they utilize him. But he can play up the lineup a little bit. From fourth to third for sure. With Belzil, I couldn't agree with you more, Marco. I think he earned his way. It's unfortunate that it's gone this direction, but I guess this is what happens when you start having too many prospects and trying to fit him into the puzzle. And sometimes you're just the odd man out. That's I think all it is. I mean I liked seeing him play specifically with Pizzetta because I thought that for a fourth line, they had very good chemistry together. And that comes from having played together in Laval for a number of years now. With Hoffman, here's the thing. I mean, the obvious choice everybody's going to say is, yeah, buy him out. But you got to realize the buyouts can cost you, and it works towards your cap, and it elongates the number of years that he remains on your salary cap. I think it doubles over the course of the contract. So that wasn't going to be an option. With Hoffman, I think the best thing that we can hope for here is that he starts the year, if nothing happens prior, he starts the year, starts to score finally, because maybe he's surrounded with a little bit better talent as well. And then you've got to be very aggressive at trade deadline time. Like if this guy has about 20 goals, 25 goals at trade deadline time, you can rest assured there's going to be a team that's going to say, yeah, I need somebody like that. Not on your first line, of course, or even your second, but maybe as a power play specialist or as somebody that can be a depth piece, just like Kessel was with Vegas this year. So I think that's your best option. You get a draft pick out of it, and you close the books on him.
Coach, can we have like a Hoffman? So if Hoffman does get traded at any point, I don't care what time it is, can we have like a live party streaming together?
Yeah, we'll see about that. Renaud said Belzil did way more Av que Drouin about that. Belzil, yeah. The problem, guys, remember that is if you put Belzil in the lineup, now you sacrifice another spot and you sacrifice a development prospect. A Sakaski, Eneman, and Allonen, RHP, and I can go all the way like that. If you go there, you're not going to have any prospect if you bring Belzil and the Montreal Canadiens. Unfortunately, he's not the future for the Montreal Canadiens, Belzil. With all the thing he did, I understand that, but he become only a 4-line for the Montreal Canadiens. He's not going to be in the future. Yeah. So it's better for him to let him go on the UFA. If you get a 1-year contract with Arizona for 1 year, this is benefit for him. It's a great thing she can do for the man. Give everything for the Montreal Canadiens. On the flip side, if you want to stay with the Montreal Canadiens, but you have to accept a two-way contract at X dollars. I don't know the value of that, but that was the only thing you can do with Belzil. We understand he bring leadership. Montreal will need him more at Laval Rocket, but they cannot give him only a 1-year contract for the Montreal Canadiens. The salary cap is so tight with the Montreal Canadiens. So I just want to clarify with Belzil. For RHP, a 2-3 years contract, over 1.5 will be disaster, in my opinion, for RHP and for Hoffman. But let's go to the next call.
Next call. Well, can I just one thing, just one thing though, Coach, on Belzil. The thing is you're right. Like you don't want him taking I'm not saying to have him always play like 82 games. But he's a 13th forward, right? Like, and if there's one guy that you want sitting in the stands, you don't care if he doesn't play for 30 games. That's the guy. You're right. You nailed it. You don't care about his development. He's the perfect 13th forward. And if you have to,
But
you
you have
have him on the
already
1 year.
Pezzetta.
No, Pizzetta's going to
Signed
play
to 2
regular
years.
minutes, man. He's going to play
But
regular
if
minutes.
you go that, now you have to remove Eneman, Allen, Joshua Roy, RHP, and I can go Ilonen and everything like that. That's what the problem you get. You get a veteran player for who? For what?
Yeah,
No, but
Pezzetta
to me,
won't
that's
play every
Armia.
game.
That's Armia's spot, though. Like, to me, that's more of an Armia question.
But
And
you
to me,
cannot go
Armia's-
out with Armia. You have 2 years contract. You have no contract right now with UFA with Belzile. So it's unfortunately,
You
but at
gotta-
some point you have to be exactly like I said. Yeah, you have no sentiment anymore. Bergevin was sentiment with player. So you move on. So I'm sorry, buddy, but that's what we got right now. We want to have the best development player. I think, for my opinion, and yeah, no spot.
you
If you take
don't do
Peseda,
that with him.
you cannot controlling Peseda and Belzile on the same lineup with Pitlick plus Pitlick around.
No. So here we go. So okay, this is important. So yes, I agree with you. But the players that you want to go full Vegas on, if we want to call it that, is not Belzile. The player that you want to really get rid of is Armia. I know it's hard. It's going to cost you something, but we just talked about Vegas, right? Like, you got to make moves, you got to be aggressive. So to me, you want to keep some character guys around that are going to want to play those utility roles, right? So to me, you're right. Pitlick, you got to move on from him. He's going to take away a roster spot for one of those players. Armia is a guy that you have to get rid of, and Hoffman is a guy that you have to get rid of. Belzile and Pezzetta, they're going to be. I think Pezzetta is going to, unless he's injured, he's going to probably pay. I'll go put my head on a swivel here. I'll say 72 games Pezzetta will play next year. He's going to play.
No,
he's going to be on the fourth.
He won't play that many.
Yeah. Absolutely,
he won't play that many, Marco.
If you go that way, I would say to you, no. Amia's go nowhere. Amia, it will not cost you. Again, Vegas guy did not give away a bottom six. They gave away the best player, the Fleury. They gave away Pacioretty for nothing, right? And they hit for the goal day. So you don't expect Amia go nowhere for the Montreal game. If you go that direction, I would say to you, maybe they should trade Jake Evans if you want to keep Belzile. That's the same similar role they have, both of them.
Oh,
so
no,
if you want to keep Belzile, you have to give Jake Evans at some point.
I totally disagree. Listen, we should have a whole show on that, but like to me,
it's not because disagree. It's because you have no spot. The point, you cannot do anything with Armia. You cannot buy out Armia.
But that's where we disagree, Coach. But that's where we disagree. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Armia is going to be like Pacioretty, where somebody will take him for free. You're going to have to pay somebody to take Armia. I get that, but it's worth it. We just talked about it. We have too many contracts anyways. We have too many assets.
So you're going to give Sean Farrell or Joshua Roy with Armia just to give a contract to Belzile?
Well, again, like you use two specific names, not maybe necessarily those players. Because but yeah, something like that. Could be Norlinder, it could be a third-round pick, could be something
right now,
like
Norlinder
that.
is not going to give you anything in return. That's my point. Like, if you want to do a move like that, you have to give something. Like, Norlinder don't play in NHL anyway. So they're not going to get that. They will cost you maybe a second-round pick to get Armia out of your lineup. For Belzile, that's my biggest thing. Not for a rookie like Joshua Roy. You talk about a Belzile, a 31 years old veteran in NHL.
It's not for Belzile. It's not for Belzile. This is so you're getting rid of Armia or Hoffman to make room for Ylonen or for Heineman or a player like that. To me, Belzile and Pezzetta, they are character players. They're utility players, but they're utility players that know the team, that are dedicated to the team. So I'm not saying that you're spending assets so that you can keep Belzile. No, you're trading assets so that you can have spot in your top 9 positions to play your higher end prospects. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
It's
it makes sense to me if you talk that way. I thought you were talking on Brazil. It was a subject about Brazil, but if you go that way, honestly, two players shouldn't play with Montreal next year. Hoffman and Edmondson just open up spot for the youngest players about that one over there. A lot of great comments, guys, in the chat. We appreciate a lot of great things about this. I love it. About it. Yes, Coach Brazil is not worth a losing second round pick. They can celebrate everything. It take back bad players. The problem right now, they have no money on the salary cap. So remember, guys, we tried to eliminate the bad contract for the last year. They did that, right? And now they have a chance to consider that way for one more year. So let's go move on, guys, with what got here. I apologize if you are skipping everything in the chat right now. At news, Koreanov Monahan could be back at lower number. At the chat, and right now we're going to start with Marco on that one quickly. Who do you keep or not allow? Both of them, or yes. Again, lower number. It's not like at 2.9 for Koreanov and Monahan at $5 million. But if you get lower number, would you like both of them come back on one of them or not at all?
Well, I went long on my last answer, so I'll make this very quick. No and no. No, I pass on both those guys. Entertop, over to you.
I will say no and yes. And I think with Gurionov, yes, he is a very talented player when he wants to be. And we can't afford that kind of infiltration of attitude on the team. He can't be playing every fourth or fifth game in terms of when he puts the effort in and when he doesn't. Yes, he's a big body. Yes, he's got great hands and can score, but it doesn't work into our plans. So I would say let him go. With Monahan, I'm just thinking about asset management here in terms of let's see if he can reproduce what he did at the beginning of the year this year. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, and you can trade him. You're not going to probably get a first this time around, but you'll definitely get a second if he's having a decent year. And in the process, if you can sign him for, I'd say about $2.5 million, and maybe throw in $1 million as an incentive or a bonus into the contract, so that he's enticed to stay. He can help the youth develop here. I mean, he's a very smart player, very skilled. His biggest nemesis has been injuries, and if he can stay away from that, I think he would be more of a plus than a minus on the team. I know he takes up a spot, but that'll be rectified. Like, we're not expecting to make the playoffs, or even if they make the playoffs, to even win this year. So Monahan is really inconsequential in the conversation, except that he brings you some sort of asset down the road during the course of the year.
But Entertap, like, why would Monahan ever sign in Montreal, having a family, having all that? Why would you sign somewhere knowing that you're going to get traded at his age? There's no incentive for him to do that. I just don't see why he
if we take him at his word, he seems to be very happy to be here. He's established, I know it's only been a year, but he's established already a routine here. If he gets moved, I mean, it depends where he goes. I'm sure he'd be thrilled if let's say Colorado came knocking, knowing that he's got a legitimate shot to win a Stanley Cup.
So why wouldn't he just sign with them to start with then, instead of moving his family or being apart from his family because he knows, okay, I'm going to be in Montreal. Like, we have to think of the human impact of that. I just don't.
Well,
I think he's going to sign.
All I'm saying is you put it up as an option for him. If he bites and stays, and knowing that this is going to happen, and he's okay with that, then I think it benefits Montreal. If not, because he wants to pursue more money or a better team, then by all means let him go. That part I have no difficulty with.
Great answer, both of you. Both of them, I would say to you, if Montreal can sign Monahan, I will get Monahan. They don't have top 6 player right now on the spot. They don't have, and I would say no to Koreanov. On the flip side, I can understand Marco when he said that if as a hockey player, if you have a longer contract, it's all depends what you're going to get in the market. Possible Minnesota, Pittsburgh. I'm thinking right now, Columbus. All three teams are looking for center. Could maybe take a chance offer him 2 years at $4 million. Example, I just give you a number right there, right? And I don't think so. Montreal should go that direction after that. They cannot sign him for 2 years, only a 1 year contract. It's all depends on his feelings, and maybe I'll play to play with Montreal, prove to the rest of the team and the league I can play 80, 65 game with 70 game, whatever it is. Can a team like I just mentioned can take a chance with Monahan with prone injury to sacrifice that kind of money or not? Those information I don't know, but both sides have a reason. But if you think only me right now, I would like to get Monahan for 1 year contract, about $2.5 million, maybe $3 million, and then make a trade if he can at the trade deadline. And maybe not keep him after that. We'll see what he look like, and maybe he play a good year, and then see all year long at the end of the night, at the end of the year. But that would be my option about that. We have one question. We can pick it up, guys, if you don't mind. Stay with me, guys. So we have a lot of people knock the door. Tony, Andre, Robert, Drouin, welcome back in the house, my friend. Thanks for with us. And let me check if I can get one. I apologize. I was there earlier, but here we go. From a Black Dragon. Who cannot be a surprise during the next camp at Centerburg? You can name one, your top three, very quickly. One of you is ready. Pick it up and let's go on. Move on after that.
Great questions from Black Dragon. Is he new, Black Dragon? He's got some good questions, man. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. No, I was going to say the first name that comes to mind is obviously Owen Beck. I think. Last year he showed that he can definitely probably crack the lineup. He had a good year again this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if he made the team. If we're looking at a long shot, although I probably wouldn't go this direction, but it could be Melu, depending on the defense situation. His growth last year was so exponential in terms of his hockey pedigree that I think that there's a spot for him here if he can move and show that he can do it again at the training camp.
Well said. And after that, Marco, you want something to add?
Yeah, very quick. I'd say the total opposite. I think Beck is a long shot to make the team, and I think actually Mayu has a better shot of making the team than Beck does.
Welcome, everybody. We have Roger Delaney knock the door. Mr. Nick G is in the house. Welcome, my friend. Thanks so much. I would say long shot for me, it would be Logan Mailloux. Long shot. I'm not saying he will make it, but if you think about this, that would be one. Another player would be, I would love prove something, is Joshua Roy for me. So two players, I would say that I'm excited to watching them at the next training camp, development, whatever you want to call it. So great people got in the chat. The chat is fired up. We have a lot of people. If you don't mind, guys, to click on the like for increasing our viewers, that'd be great. It's free, like he said, Mr. D. And welcome to new people, new subscriber. Thanks. And don't forget, every Wednesday night, guys, going to continue talking about the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens, Edmondson could take time to develop. What I'm talking about, guys, is I would not expect, and I want to hear from you, what do you think, at which moment you think expect the Edmondson could be traded? Secondly, the good news about Edmondson, guys, Vegas prove it again. You need big defense size at the defenseman. This is happening all the time, guys, and they prove it again. Montreal, they have a low round. Tampa Bay prove it. And that proved that helping Edmondson. But do you expect him to get traded before the trade deadline, at the trade deadline, or at UFA, or maybe after UFA? So this is the reason I'm talking to be maybe take time to develop. So what do you hear? What do you think about this, Mr. Naftat?
I think he's gone.
Super chat. Are you ready, Mr. Naftat, to do it? Before you mention?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Super chat number 1. Here we go. Super chat number 1, Roger Delaney. He did it again. Roger Delaney, super chat for the Hockey Nation show. Thanks so
The
much for all the
master.
cheerleader we have in the chat already for that great cheerleader about that one over there. Thanks so much, Mr. Roger Delaney, on this one. Mr. Natap.
Hype to the master there. Yeah, I'd be shocked if he starts with the team this year. I think that's definitely one direction that they're going to go during the draft or slightly afterwards. I don't see him in our plans, but definitely he is a piece that could help a team that's lacking that size, that physicality, and a person that can also bring it in the playoffs when he needs to. So I would be extremely shocked if he's with Montreal at the beginning of the year.
I agree. Again, God, I hate agreeing with you all the time. The reason I agree is because, well, first of all, if he wasn't injured, he would have already been traded at the deadline. There's no question about it. There's a lot of teams that were sniffing around him, including Tampa and several other teams. Edmonton as well. So to me, the reason that he's not somebody like usually a player that you would wait to move at the trade deadline is because their cap hit is really high, and the team that is going to try to squeeze him in, they want to wait till the end of the year so that the number is going to be less impactful and everything else. So, but because Edmonton's cap hit is not very high, in my opinion, he becomes a very attractive asset, right? Because his cap hit is so low. The question, of course, that teams are going to have are about his back, right? So I don't think, unless if I was Hughes, I'm not sure I would move him right now at the end of the draft or towards the draft, because you know that GMs are going to be lowballing him because of the fact that they're going to say, well, listen, we don't even know if this guy's going to be able to play. So I would kind of throw the dice on this one a little bit and let him start the season, let him play 10, 20 games. And then you just hope that one of those teams gets like a couple of injuries and they need to backfill sooner rather than later. And then he's a very attractive asset because, again, like his cap hit is low. A team can bring him in earlier at any point during the season, and it's not going to really screw up their cap situation.
Well said, both of you on that. And Vincent, we said to you, I think it will be trade more in July for him. The reason why I think everybody's going to see what they look like, the UFA, and they have not a lot, the defenseman as a UFA this year. So maybe team was looking for add someone. And after the UFA come down, I think that will be the reason. I believe Montreal going to trade him between July 10 and July 29. I don't want to give you exactly the date because now you're going to see if coach is crazy. But
very specific.
That would be my expectation about him.
How many games did Matthews play this year, Coach?
I'm sorry again.
What's that?
How many games did Matthews play this year again, Coach?
I told you he was not play all year long. I told you he got 68? No.
Yeah, you're pretty close.
I know. At news price long-term injury reserve, what you talking about, Coach? But it's a great question for Black Dragon here, and I want to. You read already Black Dragon. Some people read my mind all the time about the show. It is. He talk about I will give to Monahan $4.5 million to keep him for 1 year or two, just because they have enough cap space to keep him, and they have no talent coming soon. They need a new contract with a good center. I understand his point of view.
That's
my
exactly
point to you is about the salary cap, and I want to ask you who do you know the rule about put a player on the long-term injury reserve during the off-season versus when the season start? Anybody, both of you, can elaborate about that concept of the long-term injury reserve for Carey Price for the Montreal Canadiens. So if one of you want to talk about this, I will just add after you guys what the reason I want to talk about that situation.
Way to put us in a precarious position there, Coach. I'll be brave and try to. Here's my understanding. Hopefully, I get it kind of right. You get the most impact financially when you put somebody on LITR when you are the closest to the cap, right? So if you put the player on LITR too early, let's say I forget what the cap is, 91 or whatever it is. If you're at 87, or if you're like $5 million under the cap, and then you put him under the LITR too early, then you lose some of the benefit of it. So it's kind of like surfing, like you're waiting for your wave to come, right? And you're waiting just for the right time to hit that wave. It's kind of like that. It's just all about timing when you actually place the player on LITR so that you can get maximum benefit. Do I have Sedgwick's job yet? Can I
Matt,
replace
you're
Johnson?
looking good so far. That's pretty good. And
Yeah,
after you
so-
want to bring something back?
No, I think that's it. That's exactly it. You have to manage all your other assets around that first, and then fit them in at the last moment when there isn't much left between the ceiling of your cap space and what it'll allow you to be flexible with once the player goes on that LTIR. It's a little bit different. It's a different conversation than buying a player out that we alluded to earlier this evening. That has a totally different impact on the salary cap, because if I'm not mistaken, if they only have like 1 year, it's prorated over 2 years. If they have 2 years on their contract, it's prorated over 4 years.
You
That's why
multiply
up
by
until
2.
this year we had. Yeah, exactly.
Multiple.
So that's why we had Alsner still on our buyout for many years. Like, he's been gone for how many years now? 6. And he was still on our records. So that part
He had
I'm
like
a little
4
bit more.
He had like
What's
4
that?
years on his contract. I think when we bought it, like he still had like a lot of time. But if you bought out our,
So he did 1 year,
Yeah.
and so they bought him out after that first year, so that he was on our books for 6 years in total.
Well said
So
about that.
it's not the
I
route
would
to
just
go.
add one thing about this, right? If you put price on the off season on the long term, that open up $10 million for the Montreal Canadiens. So that's pretty good about this. But what happening after that? They already over cap, right? Because if you add him, Montreal can go only 10% on off season. By the way, any team in NHL can go over cap only 10% on off season. During the off season. Secondly, I will say to you about this, Marco and Arta, maybe you can learn. I don't know if you know, but if you are priced right now off season, every player have a bonus at the end of the year that will accumulate for the following year. If you are not over the salary cap, but that money does not count at the end because you under the salary cap. This is a rule, specific rule, point NCBA, blah, blah, blah. But that's only another concept about that one there. So you try to maximize your salary cap close to the 83.3, 83.5, I think it was going to be next season. And if you're under that, then after that, you put prize on the reserve, but that helping your team to have flexibility more during the season, and you get under so you don't get penalized for the following year. It's a little bit deeper, but I just want to sharing this. For this is important. Unfortunately, last year, Hughes could not do anything about that because he got a contract of Monahan, everything. So he had to put price on this. That's the reason they pay $1.2 million, I believe, this year for the signature bonus.
I think so.
Like example, like Caulfield and other players for upcoming season. I just want to give you an open door for people can understand a little bit about this. Roger, ask you guys, if you have a new player, center number 1 over Suzuki, do you think that would affect Nick Suzuki or not? Great question, by the way.
No, I
Go ahead.
don't think so, Roger. You know what? As much as I like Suzuki, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and walk the plank, I think he'd make an excellent second centerman. That doesn't mean he's a bad first centerman, but I just think he's more on the lower echelon of first centermans around the league. That if you put him at that position, number one, it tells you that you've supplanted him with a true legitimate number 1 center that's going to help your team for many, many years to come. And you've created that depth right down the middle with him and Suzuki and whoever they pick up that will solidify the middle for many, many years. And I think that that's the route to go, is be strong down the middle.
I don't think it would hurt him. Like, first of all, the odds of us finding, we'll see. Again, we're picking 5th this year, so you're going to have, potentially Will Smith or, Ryan Leonard technically, I guess, has played center. So, we'll see kind of who they draft, but I don't think so. Let's say whoever they draft or whoever they can pick up as another center, because here's another good question. There's times last year where when Doc was playing really well, a lot of people were kind of arguing like Doc was like right nipping at Nick Suzuki's heels. Like, I think we forget how high of a level Doc reached at certain points of the year last year. Just a note. But to answer the question specifically, I don't think he's the kind of guy that would be hurt by that. Like we just discussed about Vegas, I think we don't have the Matthews, we don't have a McDavid, we don't have a McKinnon, right? So we're going to have a more balanced top 9 to be competitive and come at you in waves. So to me, I think here in Montreal, we're used to having 1A and 1B or more like 2A and 2B, right? We rolled with Thomas Plekanec and Saku Koivu for many years. Neither which were really true number 1 centers, but we went to a couple of conference finals and with those teams, right? So I think you're okay. Like I don't think Nick Suzuki would be bothered by that. He seems like a team guy that would definitely is interested in winning. He'll play his role. I really don't see that being an issue.
Awesome.
If anything, it'll push him.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's true. We'll go wrap up very quickly. So I want a couple of questions. Yes or no? Would you extend David Savard to 1 year to contract, 2-year contract to stick around following his contract next season?
No,
not a chance.
No, I think we're moving towards a different direction. Like he's there right now. He had a decent year. I don't know if he'll replicate it again this year, but he's there more for the leadership and the experience and helping guys like Goulet to develop properly.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The only thing I would say to you guys, I would say depends. And the reason I said depends is because you don't know the development of Barron and Mayu and the rest on the right defenseman. I think you can get another year of David Savard after the following year, so 24-25, for maybe 1 year if it's necessary. So I would just say no, but I would say depends on the development of Montreal Canadiens. It could add another RHD this year at the draft. Does it make sense?
Well, this is the point, though. I would call it the Jake Allen trap, right? Like, there's no reason to rush and do that, right? Like, they did that mistake with Jake Allen. They're like, oh, we might need him, a little longer than we thought, so let's go ahead and extend him. And then all of a sudden, Montembeault establishes himself, and now you're in a weird position. So I agree. David Savard might be somebody after his contract that you might want to keep around, depending on what's going on with the team and where players are. But there's no reason to even contemplate that until you get there. He's not going to be such a hot commodity. He loves playing in Montreal. Just let it ride. No reasons to be hasty. I'm still mad about that Jake Allen extension. I know I keep bringing it up, but man, that was stupid that they did that.
The more I
but
think
again,
about
when they sign, remember, when they get Jake Allen, it's because they have no clue about Montembeault. Montembeault was not coming for the great year. He just got a very bad year with the Montreal Canadiens.
Still, to me, that's okay. Even if they didn't know that, it's still a panic move. You know that you're not going to be competing for at least 3-4 years. Why are you worried about, oh my God, we might not have Jake Allen? Or like, Jake Allen is not like an elite goaltender or anything. It's not like,
but he's only at 3.8.
Yeah, not anymore. He's like 4 whatever now.
No. He had 3.8 for the upcoming season for the next 2 years.
I thought he was like in the 4.
No. I know.
I think he's just under.
It's just barely at 4.
But the more I think about it, the more I agree with you, Marco, about that. Like, they could have waited and maybe just gone year to year extension, and then
he's at 3.8.
Listen, like, we all love Jake Allen. He has the cool story about the tree and all that. Listen, he's a great guy. He's great in the locker room, all that. But he likes being here. He's not in a rush to go anywhere. Teams are not pounding down his door like, oh my God, we have to have Jake Allen. Like, you know, like sometimes we overvalue the assets that we have, you know, so just be patient. You know, Savard is a good guy. I think he was a didn't he win the Jacques Beauchamp trophy last year, actually?
Yeah.
I think it was him. Yeah, like he's well deserving of that. I like him. He's a great guy and really, really helpful. He's kind of like Stéphane Roby does, like assistant D coach last year, you know, so really valuable guy to have around. But no reason to get our panties in a bunch about.
But again, it's like I said, depends what you look like in 20 season, 25, 26, what the Montreal are and what they look like the rookies. And at that moment, maybe Montreal have a new UFA right defenseman around the league. It could happen about that one there. Long-term result, what is the limit player on the per team? Do you know the rules about that on that? Anyone with both of you want to answer that one?
Is it not
I don't think there is
of 2?
No, I think there is a limit.
I think you.
Yeah, no limits.
No.
Oh, no limits.
No limits.
So you could put multiple players on there. I thought there was a limit of up to 2 or 3 players that you can place.
No. Yeah, no limits. The problem is like every time you put one in the there, you stuck with what you cannot add anything ever. You cannot maybe call a player up from the top at the bottom because you're stuck at the salary cap problem about that.
That's why they still trade Weber last year, right? Like, it's not like Weber, like he was on LITR, but it just makes managing your salary cap very challenging. I was joking about John Sedgwick earlier. Like, John Sedgwick is not happy having to deal with all that shit with like those contracts, right? So one is enough. Carey Price's contract is enough. Weber, you know, like, but I couldn't even imagine if you're the capologist for a team, having more than 2 or 3 like guys on long term is not easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right about this. Willie McClary always wonder why Vegas trade Suzuki. And then Rick Bengal said, William, Vegas want a trade Glasser. Anybody knows about this, the reason behind that trade?
I think that's what Bergeron wanted initially, and Suzuki was the compensation instead. And I'm glad they went that direction. Obviously,
it reminds me of when we traded for Kovalev, and we told the Rangers, okay, you can have either Plekanec, or I can't even remember the name. It was another little Czech guy that, anyways, I can't remember who they chose, but the Rangers could choose either between Plekanec and this other guy who never played in the NHL when we traded for Kovalev, right? So that worked in our favor, and sometimes it worked against us. Like Gainey did the same thing with Ryan McDonough. He said, okay, you choose any of these defensemen, and the Rangers chose McDonough. So I guess it's karma. Sometimes it works out. You pick the right prospect, and sometimes you have a Ryan McDonough kind of situation.
Great question. Will Smith compared to Suzuki potential wise? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm. Very different players, right? Like very different.
Yeah, different size for sure. Different ability to like. I think he has a very high IQ. I mean, so does Suzuki. I mean, he's a very smart player. Compensates sometimes for other areas that he's lacking in or needs to improve in. But I think with Smith, you gain more, more of that goal scorer that Suzuki isn't right now. He's a great playmaker, but his scoring improved a little bit this year, but it's still not at the level that a number one center should be. And Smith is very dynamic in many ways. Like he's good both ways on the puck. I think so. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. He might be the target that they're after. I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah. I think you're right. Like, I agree that they are, if everything plays out the way that they want it to, that's who they'll pick. I agree. But I think it's kind of out there that Will Smith doesn't really play both sides of the ice very well. Like, he doesn't play on the right side of the puck. He doesn't compete at the level. He doesn't have the kind of motor that you would want for somebody who's going to play those kind of minutes, but that could change, right? Like hopefully that's coachable. Kent Hughes will know him more than most as to whether he's a coachable kid. You playing in those like U.S. national teams, geez, man, it's kind of like the Globetrotters, right? Like you don't have a lot of motivation to play a strong two-way game because you're just tap dancing over these other teams with the amount of skill that are on those teams. So it's kind of hard to judge, right? But I say this, I hesitate to say this because Suzuki has a reputation. You hear like Hockey Night in Canada, like, oh, Suzuki's such a smart two-way player. But he struggled, guys. Remember, there's a lot of times last year where we were quite critical on two-way play, right? He has the potential. Like when we went to the final, he absolutely was playing a strong two-way game. We know that he has the capability to do it. I don't know. I think Gordon and Hughes last year in St. Louis, they told the players they want to play a more offensive style of game, and so let's see if Suzuki can kind of go back to his roots of being a proper two-way center. But to me, there's a big contrast in styles. Will Smith is much more of a dynamic playmaker guy. Like Suzuki is a good playmaker, but Smith, I think, is at a whole other level of creativity. When it comes to
his IQ is very good. He's very good, but I would agree he needs improvement on the defensive end. But I wouldn't say he doesn't get involved in plays. I think his ability to get involved is not necessarily physicality, but he does play the body well. I would say his level of energy is always there. It's just that he has to be a little bit more aggressive, with the forecheck and playing defensively than what he is right now. And I do believe that that's something that's very coachable.
Awesome. Great question about that. Adam Berger is in the house. Welcome aboard, Adam. Montreal can afford, I don't think so. They go that direction, Adam, for the Montreal Canadiens to get that goaltender, Adam Hill. Look, I want to correct something. To be sure, is like Bergeron won Glass. He got Suzuki. So I don't know if Marco, you said he won Suzuki, he got Glass, or I don't know what the.
No, the other way around.
No. Yeah, so he wanted Glass. But then he got Suzuki. So all I was saying is, it just reminds me of Plekanec, right?
Yeah, I understand. It's just the people in the chat, they just correct everybody. So I want to be sure we are on the right path with that. We have a lot of great comments there. Rick Bengal is in the house. Welcome back, Rick. Hopefully doing well. Talk about the goaltender situation with the Montreal Canadiens. And I want to finish with the show, and then we pass the time, and maybe we're going to skip Frenchy quiz. We can come back tomorrow. It's not a big deal at the end of the day about that. But would you like the Montreal move up second? You have some kind of conversation with Anaheim Ducks, and some people have a move up with the fourth. You have a question earlier in the show about that situation. So I would like to hear from you guys. I'll give you 1 minute for each of you to give us a minute about what you think Montreal should or should not to go there. And me, I'm going to move down, but it's a subject for another time. So let's go with Inarta.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumble today that apparently Montreal has been talking to Anaheim for the possibility of getting the number 2 pick overall. Now, there hasn't been any conversation around what it might take to pry that number 2 spot away. And it all depends on what Anaheim has intentions on drafting whom. But having said that, they've also been kicking the can to try to get either second, third, or fourth, which to me indicates one thing and one thing only. They're trying to avoid having to make that decision on Michkov at number 5. That's what it is. I think they really, they would love to have somebody like Fantilli, as I would as well, on the team. I think he brings a whole different dimension to the team, just based on size, physicality, his touch around the net. But what will it cost? I know. Today I was bantering back and forth with Coach about possibilities, and there were a few things that I spitballed out there, but it's probably something that might cost you both your picks and maybe even a prospect to get that number 2 pick.
The proposal was the second round pick and return fifth round pick Joshua Roy and the 31st overall pick. Yes or no?
Yeah.
No.
Marco?
No for me. First of all, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think anybody is trading their top 5 pick. It would have to blow them away. You know, like this is not a weak draft, especially, you know, in the top 5, right? So you're going to have to absolutely, you know, wine and dine that team and knock their socks off. I just don't see the reason in doing that. Like, again, I have said that, you know, we need to draft an elite player, you know, if we can, for sure. And I'd be willing to sacrifice assets for it, but to what extent, right? Like if you're throwing like 5 quality assets to do that, I don't think it's worth it. Based on, like, if you're doing it for Bedard, yes. I don't see a huge. There's a little bit of a gap between Fantilli, Smith, and, you know, the next tier of like even Carlson.
Well, remember this.
Carlson's
okay. I want to be sure we my question is, okay, you take Fantilli over Leonard, Benson, and Rebecca because they don't get Michkov now. So it's not Smith or Carlson. It's a Fantilli versus Leonard, Benson, or Rebecca, or Devoski, whatever you want to got it. Is it worth it or not?
Yeah, I think the way that they're going to play this, I think the way they play this out, Coach, is they're going to have a whole bunch of tons of different scenarios mapped out, right? So they're going to have, okay, so if this player is available, we're going to have this deal, that deal available that we know we can make with this team. I think that's how it works, right? It's not like these things happen spontaneously on the floor. No.
It's all. This is like right now. You call Pat Verbeek, right? And he gave us an option there, and then he knows what the deal would be if they make that deal, and then it can go all the way. Like San Jose Sharks is going to talk now, and now they get I don't know, like Carlson and Fantilli is out, so now it's between Smith and Michkov. Now they maybe call, and maybe now they know the proposal if they go that direction. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. So
it's all about the teams that are ahead of Montreal. Whether it's, we're talking about San Jose, we're talking about Anaheim. If they already have a different player targeted, and let's say it's a Michkov, and they know that Montreal's trying to avoid it, why not switch the position? You're going to get the player that you want. Like if San Jose is seeking Michkov, then make the trade. You're going to get an asset, and you're going to get the player that you originally wanted, which was Michkov. So it makes sense. But having said that, like in the last, I don't know what it is, 20, 25 years in that neighborhood, the only time a top 5 pick has been moved was, I believe it was Marc-Andre Fleury back in 2003. It's never been done since then.
Well, Brian Burke is, like, you know, famous for the Sedin moves and everything
that
he did.
Yeah,
like, I think
that was prior. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was prior to 2003, but you're right.
Yeah, like I would be shocked if something like that happens. To be honest, like you're saying, Intertap, like Montreal will be focused on teams before them, and they'll have all those deals worked out. They're also going to have those conversations with the teams behind them too, right? So similar to them, like if they think that they can get the player they want, not to shit on Bergevin again, we've done that a couple times on this show, but. And bringing up Kotkaniemi again, so I know the chat's going to be all over me, but if they wanted to draft Kotkaniemi, they could have moved down 4 to 5 spots and probably still got him, right? That's another waste. So I know he should have drafted Tkachuk, but if you felt that strongly about getting Kotkaniemi, another terrible mistake was not moving down to get him, picking him at 3. Would we feel better today if they would have traded the third overall pick to someone else, got another young asset or whatever they would have gotten for him, and then we drafted Kotkaniemi number 10 or 9? Then I think it would be a different story, right? So you have to be open to going up or down. I honestly would be shocked. I would be shocked if we end up moving up. I'll be happy, depending on what they give up. If it ends with the name Gooley or something like that, I will not be happy.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. But I think that there is there is room to orchestrate something like this. It just depends on which team we're
But the
talking
best thing
about.
in our tab
What?
is 4, right? So 4, 5.
Well,
If it's
four
San
is
Jose, I
four.
make a switch right
Four is
there.
an
I
easy
get a
one.
5th-round pick, all right? And then I get the 31 overall pick from the Montreal Canadiens and maybe the 4th-round pick or something like that in return. And that will be good. It's not like a big step from 5 to 2 or the 9
Yes,
to
yes.
4. It's really one position, and now they get the player they want. Whatever they said, well, you know what? They know they're going to get Will Smith, so going to get Mitch Cobb anyway. Now I'm add another 1st-round pick at the end of this, and plus maybe a 4th-round pick in return. That will be the cost for Montreal Canadiens, and my eyes are for San Jose Sharks. If not, you move on. If I'm San Jose, I do this. If they are really thinking to add more players and for the rank the prospect, or they want to add a rebuilding that way, I do this all late with Montreal Canadiens.
I think here's my prediction,
Mm-hmm.
Coach. All year, we talked about how Hughes was trying to get another 1st-round pick. So the most likely thing, again, I'm not. If there's something that he probably really wants to do, is either improve the 31st pick that we have, or keep the 31st pick we have and snag a 15th pick or an 18th pick or something like that. I think, to me, if you listen to what they've said all year, they've been wanting to add another 1st-round pick for this draft all year. They weren't able to do it because Monahan was an idiot. Sorry. They weren't able to do it because Edmondson got hurt. But that was the plan all along. They wanted to get another 1st-round pick. So that's my prediction, Coach. They're not going to
And don't
change the
discount
picks
it.
they have. They're not going to change the picks they have. They're going to try to get another one.
Here we go. You're going to have already my updated news for tomorrow morning, guys. My prediction is going to be a big trade between the Montreal Canadiens and the Detroit Red Wings for the upcoming playoff. It's going to get Detroit are going to jump in from 9-5, and the Detroit Red Wings are going to give the number 9 and 17 in return for number 5. And Montreal maybe gave the 31 if they have to do the deal. But I really believe if one GM is bold and can make date like that, he did it in the past to get Kosa, and Detroit with Ezerman, love the Russian players, Kucherov, and they can go the way. He played with Larionov, everything like that. This could be a really deal. The only bad side, it's now Montreal cannot get Leonard, Raybacker, and Dewaski maybe, and they want to get maybe Benson. But the pick number 17, they can get something solid there as it. So I don't know what you think about that.
No,
I don't hate it.
no.
Do you not like Benson?
Well,
I think Benson is going to be a player, man. I love
Benson is getting better and better in my heart, ladies and gentlemen.
You were not big on Benson at the beginning of the year. You thought he was too
small.
But
last year, until the last day before the draft, I said Shane Wright until I sleep and then I go ski. But
sure.
We'll see what's happening there. But I think there will be something to consider about that. I'm not saying what happened, but I think it will be my question tomorrow on my updated news. So
it's an interesting proposition. But I think it's like a trade, and you look at this and you say, when you're trying to evaluate a trade, you look at who got the best player in the deal. And when I'm looking at this, I think the number 5 pick will be a better player than what we would get at the. Would you say
if you think? Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is if they might be sneakily thinking what Coach and I are thinking, which is, okay, so we'll probably get Leonard at number 5.
Yeah,
right. He's a good player. But we think Benson, we can get him at whatever 9. You were saying, Coach, is we're pretty confident we can get Benson. He's a bit kind of like a bit of a sleeper. Like he was ranked probably number 4 for at certain parts of the year, and then he just kept sliding because people kept saying he's 5'10", but people were thinking that he was like 5'6". You know, like he's not. Like he's 5'10". This guy is Gallagher in terms of his motor. Okay, like that's how intense he is. Like he has the motor of like a Sam Bennett, of a Gallagher, but the talent of a Seth Jarvis. That's kind of how I see him.
Yes,
He's like,
I agree. He's
yeah,
very talented, but you said it earlier, Marco. Look at Vegas, right? With the exception of Marchessault, they had a big team, and that's what won it for them. And any team that goes far in the playoffs, I mean, you don't see many small teams
well
making
Leonard,
it all the way to the end.
well Leonard is only 5'11". We all love, so okay, we're taking Leonard at number 5. He's only an inch. He's an inch taller than him. He's only an inch taller. Is that really going to make a difference?
I
Right?
I don't know. I still think we're not seeing the forest through the trees here. I still think at number 5, Michkov is there. I don't know why we're not going for him. If
Well,
that's the
yeah,
case, either that or they're playing a great game of poker here. Hughes is
no,
and that's gonna create a situation where we get him. But I mean, you want to hit a home run, you got to go with Michkov, in my
they're
eyes.
not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I
I
think it's
don't think
clear. I
so,
think,
but
yeah. So, so again, so on coach's proposition, if you're pretty confident that you're landing with Leonard, maybe he's like a smidge. You think his ceiling is a smidge more than Benson, but you're evaluating. You're looking at the marketplace, and you're confident that people are sleeping on him a little bit, which I'm not guaranteed people are. But if they are, it's risky though, eh, coach? Like that's 4 spots. Like which 4 players are going to go? So okay, let's say Montreal trades number 5, and you're right, Detroit snags Yakupov. Okay. Oh, hey, by the way, weren't we going to do a mock draft? Is
yeah,
that
that's
still
coming
happening?
up.
Okay.
That's coming up
Well,
another night.
let's save that whole conversation for our mock draft, because that that would be a
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
I don't want to correct, but not correct, but Benson guy is 5'10",
Leonard.
so he's not
Yeah,
5'9",
That's
5'8". He's
what we
5'10".
said.
I know.
No,
I know.
So
we
it's
That's
said
what I
same
said.
size like
5'10".
Michkov and everybody else. It's not like he's
Well,
small,
Mitch
small,
Moff is much
small.
smaller.
And
He could become a
and I think
5'11".
I think Leonard is 6 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's
Not
5'11".
the 2 inches makes him.
I don't think
He's
so,
5'11".
Benz. I think Leonard was at
The Pro
5'11",
Prospects has him.
5.
What's that? 5'11".
Leonard is 5'11". He's 5'11".
Yeah, I got him at 6 here, but
Yeah, he's 5'11" right now at 181 pounds.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but again, remember, guys, is the key behind that is only if Montreal don't get Michkov. So the proposal that Anderson is the best one. But if you want to have a better, because now you get 2 players are going to be your top 9, or are going to be on the top pairing defenseman. At that moment, Balika could be at the spot number 17. You can have maybe Simashev as the number 17. This was the huge trait, and I said to you, we're losing an amazing great player when the Montreal with the Panthers go all the way to 31st. At 31st, guy, it's Danny Nelson, it's Otto Stenberg. It's not like maybe Michael Herbal, the goaltender Rabal, if you want to get that one at 39, at 37. But again, I have no clue. I just give you an option about Montreal Canadiens, like we mentioned, move up. I said maybe move down for that specific. Now, if they want to get Leonard and or Rimbacher or Benson before Detroit, you have to make maybe a trade with the Washington Capitals because Washington may be looking for a team behind them. They want to have Michkov. They maybe make that trade over there. But I think for Detroit, it'd be a good deal because now you get 2 pick and return for that one over there. So
I like
it. Could be a big mistake. Some team is going to win this Michkov sweepstakes. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, the team
I
going
get
to
it.
and
I
after
get it that
the
there's
team get
risk.
Michkov are going to have he's going to be a great player. But do you think Kaprizov is going to make the Minnesota Wild winning the Stanley Cup?
Yep,
Well,
I agree.
he's what you said, Coach. You said in order to be a team that goes to the finals and wins the cup, you have to have 1, 2, or 3 elite players. Kaprizov is definitely an elite player, and they're on their way there. Like I mean, Mitchkov is going to be another one of those, just like Bedard is, just like
Oh yeah,
McDavid
yeah.
is, just like
Again,
you
if they
know.
again, my point is like if they can make Mitch Cup, that would be a great asset for the Montreal Canadiens for sure at long term. But can my only problem is like how you limit with communication, you limit with your development. He's going to be at 21, 22 when he's going to be with Montreal Canadiens, and you cannot teach him to defensive. You have to reset again the same thing. So it maybe take another 2 years the development for him, Mitch Cobb, maybe 3 years to become a great hockey player in the NHL. Now you talk about 3 years. At that moment, that will give you 5 years. Where Caulfield is going to be, where Suzuki is going to be, where Doug is going to the development. So I think for Montreal, maybe that's the biggest concern. Not about the player, what he believed he can become. It's about how we can develop him quicker, faster, better. One going to be at the right time to make a good team together. That's what I'm thinking.
And Entertop, like
Yeah,
you were saying, a team needs 2 to 3 elite players. Would you say that, like, I think Vegas has 2, right? They had Eichel and they have Peter Angelo. Mike or Stone is a very, very good player, but I'm not sure I would call him an elite player. St. Louis, they also had Peter Angelo. They didn't really have. I don't know. I think.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of.
I understand that, but I think in getting Benson, you don't have that elite player. If you get
I think.
Mitchkov, you definitely have a possible generational player, let alone an elite player.
I think Benson is going to be probably like an 80-point guy in the NHL.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. Again, that doesn't constitute an elite player. Again, it's semantics where we have to define what these terms really mean. But
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we can go on and on with this.
All right, guys. Like it's 10 o'clock. We bet overtime because the subject was so good about it. Want to definitely repeat, guys, next Wednesday if you're available. Every Wednesday, guys, is going to be a show called. We're going to create a new name for that one over there. It's going to be maybe other times on the week too, but really focusing on the AB tonight. I'm going to consider this, and of course, don't forget the NHL draft. We're going to have a special edition, the 27th. We're going to be live for the NHL Draft 2028, the 28th, and then we're going to consider the morning a little bit about the second round for the Montreal Canadiens. So stay tuned until we're going to cover the UF3, by the way. So we're going to skip, guys. The Frenchy quiz tonight is already 11 o'clock, and you're already demanding a lot of time for Marco and, of course, Enarta, both of you. Thanks again to join me live tonight. Hopefully you enjoy that. Guys, this is the reason why the growing of this channel, because of both of them are going to give our time volunteering to be a part of the co-host. And we want to thank all the moderators tonight. We saw Danny, we saw Luciano, and the moderator, and we thank both of them to participate. And of course, the new people, new subscriber. Great to see you, Rick, and Mr. D, and many others subscriber grab a little bit earlier, and then the returner people in the chat. Thanks so much to keep up with all the questions. And we did not answer your question. We apologize. Sometimes the time is flying. The subject is so good. But again, we don't forget you. We just said thanks so much having all of you. Then, guys, before we leave, we will ask you one more thing. What you looking for? And maybe in the next couple of days or something specific or whatever you're thinking. Could be around the NHL. I know Jason Spencer with the Pittsburgh Penguins now as assistant general manager. And gave the coffee every morning to Kyle Dubas, but that's not a subject for another time.
That's a surprise. We didn't see that coming.
It's weird though, like hiring an assistant GM before you actually hire your GM.
No, that's because he's the GM. He's got both hats on.
But I think what it means is
like
that
he's gonna take the role right now, Marco. He's even said that, Dubas. But eventually, Spezza will be the GM.
I think who's the guy that's the assistant GM in Toronto now? Hit him?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. I'm not sure the name.
Yeah, his contract is over next year, right? So I think he rolls in there is probably what happens. But Coach, thank you for not cross-checking me in the neck. My sternum is already broken, so I can't afford another injury. So hopefully I'll be able to dress myself to go to work tomorrow, and it was a fun show.
Thanks so much, Marco. Thanks so much, Mr. Tap. We want to thank Luciano, by the way, and he said Titanic 2.0. Coach, what is your story about the White Cloud, the first Indigenous player to win the Stanley Cup? That's a great way to see that. Adam, about him. Congratulations for all the fans of the Vegas Golden Knights. Adam and many other guys, take a time to go to parade, celebrate. This is maybe the only time you're live. It could happen. So take this week, take vacation, whatever it is. Tell your girlfriend, I'm going out. Don't worry about me. And whatever you want to do, get there about this. Rick Woods, thanks so much. You joined us tonight. Black Dragon again. New people in the chat. Like I said, we need more people like you sharing this on your social media. Let's make this channel the best of the Montreal Canadiens. Until the next time, my friend, we want to remind you one more thing. Here we go. You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you. They have greatness inside of them. And welcome again, everybody. And of course, thank you so much, everybody, to be with part of the show tonight. Co-host, thanks so much. Can't wait to see you next time. Until then, be well, BL. Find a way not only dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the first half of what, Mr. Tap?
You're 2023.
You did it again. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Oh. Booyah!